President Ricciardone, thank you for affording us this opportunity.
It's a great pleasure. Welcome to the Office of the President, and I'm keen to actually interview you. I want to learn more about the Caravan and your plans, and through you, more about our community.
And we'd be happy to help to contribute with any of that. First off, could you please explain what you hope to accomplish here and sort of introduce yourself to the AUC community? Because although you're no stranger to Egypt, you are sort of new to AUC.
I find this a really exciting moment to be in Egypt after all Egypt has been through in the years since I was last here in a different capacity. I think I choose to believe that we might be a historical moment where Egypt is poised to take off in a certain way. Despite all the problems and the issues that are there, Egypt has been through so much, its resilience has shown, and AUC is part of Egypt and will be part of Egypt's future trajectory, whether it's up or down. I choose to believe it's up, and I think we can contribute to the upward trajectory. What do I mean by that? I mean the return of the world to Egypt and Egypt to the world. AUC is, we like to say, Egypt's global university. That means it's served historically in our first century as a portal to the world for many Egyptians. But at the same time, it served as a portal to Egypt for many Americans and others, Europeans and increasingly from other parts of the world. I hope we can fulfill that historic role as we've always done, only more so in this period after the revolution, as the world comes back to Egypt. This is a great way to encourage the world to come back to Egypt and help your generation again be turned loose on the world.
And do you have any specific plans or initiatives you have in mind that would accomplish this?
Well, I've always found it best when coming into a place not to come in as the new person and say, here's my plan for you. Here's what I think you should do. Here are all my bright ideas. When one comes to a place like AUC, which is so special, so rich in human talent, Egyptians, but also international talent here, wow. I want to come and listen and see what we've got. Yeah, sure, of course I have lots of ideas. I've been spending the past really 6 months since I decided that I would accept the honor of coming here, learning a lot about the place and talking with faculty, students, parents, alumni, certainly the trustees, to find out people's feelings about the place and visions of the future. And from that I have taken away some premises that I'd like to pursue. I can speak to you about those, but it's not Ricciardone coming here and saying this is my vision. This is what I've understood is what the best of AUC's different constituencies are desiring and foreseeing and committed to doing.
And
should I tell you what those are?
please go ahead.
Okay. I see three broad sort of themes that come out from these consultations. The first is what I've just heard the provost refer to in his provost forum briefing today as the re-internationalization of AUC. Remember, we talked about AUC's global status as Egypt's global university. Bringing foreigners back to Egypt and letting foreigners feel what I've felt as an American who's come to Egypt on and off over the years since I first visited in 1977 as a tourist. The not just the warmth and the welcome of Egypt, but the dynamism of today's Egypt. The stresses and strains. There's no whitewashing the problems. There's no pretending that there aren't serious problems. But with it, there's an energy. And there's so much that's positive about this country. So bringing back and strengthening AUC's identity as Egypt's global university, I guess, is point number one. All the Egyptians I speak with, all the students, the Egyptian students, as well as the internationals, the parents, all want that. They remember an AUC before the revolution when there were lots of foreign business people, lots of foreign tourists, and lots of foreign students at AUC. I think I can't do much about the larger Egypt, but all of us together can do more to encourage re-internationalization of AUC. So that's number one.
I do have a point about that, though.
Sure.
Wouldn't you say that Egypt, and especially AUC's role internationally, has been sort of under scrutiny for the past few years because of recent events and the security situation in Egypt and how that impacted our academic freedoms here at AUC? Wouldn't you say that's a top concern among international students or international perspectives? How would you address that?
Well, part of it goes to the role of the media anywhere, and you're in the media business, right? International media is like yours. Your readership, your viewership is interested in provocative, stimulating, exciting, headline-grabbing things. You've probably heard this since you're a student of journalism. In the United States, they used to say, if it bleeds, it leads in the news business. So you're always looking for traffic accidents and death and destruction and injuries. And that grabs world headlines. That's just the fact of life, even in the old media. And now in the new media, you amplify the spread of bad news even more. That's just a reality. It's not a matter of journalistic responsibility or whatever. It's just the way it is. People will tweet and put on Facebook things that grab and excite. I think the challenge we have is to put out what I find exciting, positive aspects about being in Egypt and being at AUC. So yes, the security situation is worrisome for foreigners coming to Egypt, but look around us. Millions of Egyptians are leading their lives every day, working hard, studying, building, creating, learning, researching. All that positive human activity is the reality, is the larger part of the reality than the elements of crime and violence that are in New York, are in London, are in Madrid, are in Rome, are in Paris, are in Nice. So we have to have the bigger perspective. That's where the Caravan can help, I think. Give the reality. Yes, you should report on the conflicts and the tensions and the arguments. That's part of human life. But I hope there's room for celebrating the spectacular successes of our student athletes who were at the Olympics, the breakthrough discovery of a hepatitis C diagnostic technique, the advances we're doing in engineering and the patents that we're developing, our venture lab that's promoting entrepreneurship, new businesses by young people for employment and growth, the work we're doing in the arts and in music. Part of my time the past few weeks has been spent in looking at how we can open up our theater to community engagement and have people come in from all around New Cairo and all around Cairo to enjoy student and professional productions as well. So I would never whitewash the problems and pretend they're not there, but there's so much that's exciting and positive that should draw Americans and Europeans and Chinese and Indians back to Cairo.
With regards to the elements of crime and violence you mentioned, in that there was a lot of backlash from the student body last semester because they felt that the administration wasn't doing enough to address them or to sort of they felt that there was an inadequate response from the administration regarding a particular incident I believe you're very aware of.
The Giulio Regeni murder.
Murder.
That was terrible.
It was. And they felt that the administration wasn't doing enough to sort of contribute to safeguarding our academic freedoms, and a lot of the student body feels that although there are positives going on And the Regini incidents aren't things that happen every day, but they're things that are looming over
Sure.
the student body. How would you sort of guarantee that it doesn't happen again, or the situation really isn't in the university's
Right.
hands, but how would you sort of ensure that our academic freedoms are guaranteed, or that we feel safe in the environment we're
Sure.
in?
Well, I think part of our responsibility as educators is in helping young adults become full adults. And that means understanding the realities of the world. We treat our students as grown-ups and people who are becoming grown-ups. And that means, I don't mean to hurt you, but there are no guarantees in life. Bad things happen, that shouldn't happen, and are unacceptable. There should not be murder. There should not be oppression.
But what
There
should
should
we
not be
as an
injustice.
institution do about it? What can we do about it?
What I think AUC has always done is try to help develop citizens who will accept individual as well as community responsibility for their future. That's our core business. We cannot guarantee the kinds of things that there is no Santa Claus. It's time students know that. What we can do is help students grow and develop in a space here at AUC where you can ask hard questions, where educators value hard questions over memorized answers. So we want students asking, why do bad things happen? How can we students, as emerging citizens of our country, work for a better society? Here's the right question, and it one that influenced me when I was a very young student, before I was a university student. We had a president who really transformed the United States of America, John F. Kennedy. And you've probably heard this. In his inaugural speech, he only had one inauguration because he was tragically assassinated. He famously said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." That stimulated a whole generation of Americans to public service, including myself. We thought, wow, so it's not all about me and the government guaranteeing, giving me an education, giving me this, giving me my rights. The important thing for the citizen is, how can I advance my country and my community and us? So I hope that by the time students leave AUC, they will be thinking in those terms. What can I, as a graduate of a world-class university, do to serve my country, my world? How can I discover cures for disease? How can I advance human rights? How can I accept the responsibility and fulfill the responsibility to preserve freedom of inquiry and freedom of speech? Not what will somebody else do to give me freedom of speech. You have freedom of speech. On this campus, you can ask any question you want, and you're not going to find, I don't think you'll find any faculty member or member of the university saying that question is out of line. So to the extent we at the university level can act to protect, you bet we will do that. We work in Egypt. Today's Egypt is a complicated reality. There are parts of it that Egyptians find unacceptable. I think it's important for foreigners to come into a country like Egypt, any country, but especially Egypt, and seek to understand this place, how it works, and respect Egypt for what it is. There will be things about Egypt that foreigners won't like. That's a reality. If you're a foreigner coming here, be prepared to find wonderful, warm welcome, great things, wonderful people, welcoming people. You will also find some problems that will upset you. When you're a grown-up and you go to a new environment, you need to be prepared for that.
And you mentioned that you are going to go to considerable lengths to sort of help the students reach that point on their own.
that's our job as a university. Anything we can do to help students not only preserve the natural inquisitiveness of young people, but to take that inquisitiveness, turn it into real creativity, and take a passion for research in science or creation in the arts or investing in business, new products, new services, new ideas. Take that natural energy, help add the skills, the social, the organizational skills, the technical skills, and come out of AUC turned loose on the world and all its problems, and go out there to solve the problems of the world. That's what a great university does.
And to do that, the university needs to have a very solid connection with the student body.
Absolutely. I disagree about connection. I think students are integral to, the students are the university and the university is the students. It's hard to talk about a connection. Just like faculty, students, certainly administration and staff are the integral components of the university community. I would add those who don't live on the campus with us, but without whom we're not a university. The parents who are doing most of the funding and gifting an incredible education to the students. They're integral. The alumni who recognize a certain debt to an institution that transformed their lives, in most cases for the better, they're an integral part to the extent that they wish to be and continue to contribute financially or in other ways. The trustees, some of whom are Egyptian and live in Egypt, most of whom are not, who are Americans, who give not only of their time but of their wealth and their wisdom. Many are faculty members, very eminent faculty members themselves. They're part of our community. And finally, there are people who are neither alumni, nor parents, nor students, nor faculty, who are visionaries. They are people of means, substantial means. They may be Egyptian. They may be from elsewhere in the Arab world. They may be Americans or Europeans. And they see the importance of the business of education in Egypt. Those donors, those philanthropists whose names are in the buildings you see around us, they're part of our community. They see the importance of our students and our faculty and what we're doing, and they want our success too. So when I say the AUC community and the students, I put it in that context of the word us or we. That's how I see the student role in the what you call connections. It's got to be tighter than connection. It's got to be integral.
But the truth is that there are a lot of students right now who think that the administration isn't really addressing their concerns, not just with regards to incidents like Regini, but more specifically over the summer there's been a lot of backlash over the spike in tuition fees, and the university has stated its position. They have stated that there is an economic crisis, there are inflation rates, that the increase in tuition fees in the dollar is not that much higher than competitors in the market. But students don't feel like this is an adequate response. They don't feel like this is properly addressing their concerns. Many of them are talking about finding alternative institutions because tuition is just too expensive now. And the university does have a statement released, and we've all read it, but there are students out there who don't think it's enough. What would you like to tell them?
I would like to engage with all members of our community who are stakeholders in the success of our students and our university. I want everyone to understand the realities of what we're working with. We strive for excellence and quality. We don't exist as AUC because we're some kind of a cheap knockoff of an American-style education. Quality, the reality is quality and excellence cost. We should not be an elitist university. Sometimes, we're accused of that. Our students are accused of being, I've heard the word superficial, wealthy kids who are selfish and so forth. I reject that. I've known too many AUC people over the years. So I think our focus has to be, number one, on excellence and quality. We should be elite without being elitist. Elitist is snobbish. But elite means focused on excellence. We should have not only the brightest people who are best at passing exams, but the most dedicated, hardest working, committed to other than the self, to building, to serving, to public service, to the service of their countries and their family. So, all that said, second point, I'm more than sympathetic to the high costs. I come from a large family of modest means. I was the first generation in my family to get a higher education. I went to an expensive private school. I took loans in order to do it. I worked, you don't do this in Egypt, but in my country, students work for pay in the summers and during school time. I worked in the cafeteria or dish room washing dishes. I went on to become a U.S. ambassador. I'm a university president. I feel very humble about the gifts I was given, and I recognize the cost to my family, the sacrifice that it meant to my father and mother, as the parents of 6 kids. So I personally feel what Egyptian families are going through and the sacrifices they make to send their kids to AUC. They could choose a cheaper place. To those students who are the top ones of Egypt and beyond, who don't have the means, we're trying to expand our scholarship program. All students, every one of the students here, gets a massive subsidy. If you take the costs of operating this place and distribute that across the students, you find that tuition covers only 60%
Yes.
of our costs. In addition, 60% of our students do get at least some degree beyond the standard of additional scholarship help. What I hope to do is to be able to increase the funding of scholarships to help those families that are suffering.
How would you do that?
Well, one is with your help. If the students here continue to generate success stories and show their dedication to the highest standards of academic excellence, to community service, to self-improvement and discipline, that will be a selling point that I can use and our public affairs people can use, that you can use to help strengthen the reputation of AUC. If our reputation is that we are a community of students who say, I want my rights, I want a cheap education, I'm not going to be able to sell that. If you help establish and reestablish AUC's reputation as a place where the students say, I want the best for my country, I want the best education that money can buy, I'm prepared to work hard on that, my family are making sacrifices, I can take that to other funders, private donors, I hope some governments here and there. Most of our funding is not from governments, of course.
Is the university seeking any such private donors currently?
You know, it would be, are you kidding? I guess let me give you some homework. Why don't you speak with our public affairs team and get a great briefing on the team we have that is relentlessly, year in and year out, telling the story of AUC in the world and asking donors, visionary donors, to please continue to support us and support us even more. Walk around campus, take a look at the names on the buildings, and you will see the names of people who very substantially are paying for your education and are paying for the Caravan to broadcast and to put out its newspaper. You bet. Maybe students need to understand more about the generosity of people who are giving to the students already, even as they demand more. I hope students will demand excellence and not just demand cheap. I can promise we will manage rigorously to cut waste wherever we can find it. I won't promise you to deliver cheap. That's just the reality. If you want cheap, if you want down market, if you want an education that is less than world standard, if you don't want excellence, I can't help you. You really, then this isn't the right place for you.
What areas would you think are taking up more or excessive expenditure? You mentioned that there is waste and that you try to cut
I didn't
it down.
mention there is waste. I said I promise I will help manage rigorously to find waste and to get rid of any waste or excessive cost. Students can help there. If you see wasteful things in the way we go about our business, please report that and give us your ideas for more effective management. If you see ways that we are failing to deliver excellence, I want to know, and I want our faculty to know and our administration to know, and we want to address those things. That's really important. So the student voice, your voice as the Caravan, is, as I say, it's not just a matter of connection, it is integral to our success as the university. Our success, your success as students, the administration's success, the faculty's success. There's just one success, and it's our success.
And our success as AUC is also very closely tied to the success of other institutions in the country. You
Absolutely.
mentioned that you want to increase collaboration nationally.
Absolutely.
With other universities and with other institutions. How would you go about that? Are there any particular goals you have in mind, or?
Sure. Well, first of all, yes, I would love to expand whatever collaboration we can with the educational and scientific community of Egypt. So I'll be visiting with those other institutions. I'm in touch with a number of them. You might know that one of our own late trustees, the wonderful Egyptian-American world-class scientist Ahmed Zawel, who just passed away, has supported AUC in the past and also supported Egypt in establishing Zawel City. And I'm an advisor to that enterprise, proud to be doing that. I will visit other Egyptian institutions of higher education and ask how we can do that. But beyond that, the more we engage with our immediate neighborhood, as you and I were discussing, Mohammed, before, the more job opportunities we can help our alumni and students find as they graduate. So collaborating with the Egyptian private sector and the world private sector is very important. That's something I hope we can not only continue doing, but expand doing. You know, in my former job, I was a U.S. government official, and I engaged with the government of Egypt. I think we've got to make sure we've got the most intimate and respectful relations with the government of Egypt. So we have our university counselor, who is a terrific channel of communications, formerly a minister himself. Former Minister Salama has already taken me to meet with the Minister of Higher Education and the Prime Minister, and we'll continue meeting with officials in all agencies and at all levels whose goodwill and cooperation we need for the success of the university, and to whom we can contribute as AUC. Again, I'm not going to go and ask, help AUC. I want AUC to serve Egypt.
How do you imagine AUC could serve Egypt beyond just graduates sort of filling up the job market?
Well, it's more than, we start with that. We start with you. We start with the students. We hope that we take in Egyptian young adults. We deliver 4 or 5 years later full-grown, fully responsible, committed, passionate, capable adults, not only to Egypt, back to the United States, back to Europe, back to the rest of the Arab world, who will build. That's no small thing. If we're doing that right and we're delivering not elitist, but elite graduates, that's our core contribution, of course. But in addition, I believe we can help with the research we're doing in solving world problems, Egyptian problems, environmental issues. We have an exciting example in the urbanology work, the community engagement project under Professor Magda Mostafa. She and I were just talking just before you came in. That's interdisciplinary across our faculties, administration, students, government of Egypt, Egyptian private sector. There are great synergies that AUC can deliver there. There's almost an unending thing. The arts. We can help enrich the lives of people who live out here in New Cairo, as also through our old downtown campus. Community engagement is one of the, I think, strong suits of AUC in our first century. And as we enter our second century, I think we can do even more.
You mentioned that you served as ambassador to Egypt before the revolution, correct? How have your views about the country and what we can accomplish here changed since then?
I've always been fascinated by Egypt. You know, before I was a government official, I came here as a tourist. Americans, like many around the world, study Egypt even in elementary school. When you're studying what it means to be human and you're studying human history, at least in American school systems, you study Egypt. Probably at around age 10 in most American schools. It varies. And the fascination at how ancient Egyptian culture distributed the waters of the Nile through irrigation, how it worked through taxation, how the king developed governors and ministers and courts to organize human society, how Egyptians thought about the afterlife and religion. Mankind has a lot to learn from the study of Egypt. So I came as a tourist and was smitten. And I was delighted to come back as a public official and do what I could to promote Egyptian-American interaction at all levels. Politics sometimes I found got in the way of real business, trade, investment, study, work, play, entertainment. I loved it when American musicians were able to come and pick up Eastern music and themes from Egypt and combine them with American jazz and put out something new. So after I finished my public service career, that fascination with Egypt continued. And when the opportunity to come back to Egypt in this position came along, I just couldn't resist. It was too exciting to say no. So it's a long answer. I hope that answers your question. I think it's just thrilling to be here right now.
But you do have a very established career in diplomacy.
I did. I left diplomacy 2 years ago.
Why?
I loved it. It was fun. I thought it was a very high privilege to serve in the United States government. And I would encourage any of our students here who are thinking about public service, think about diplomacy in whatever your country is. It's a very high calling. You get to work on conflict resolution and the really big problems of the world. So if you're an idealist who wants to do something practical to do a better world, I think diplomacy is a great career, and I loved it. But after doing it for so many years and having been an ambassador to so many countries, I thought, I want to try something fresh and different. I'd like to break out of the constraints of government and go back to my first love, which was education. I started out as a school teacher. As high as I believe government service is as a vocation and calling, I think teaching is maybe the highest, education is probably the highest public service of all. So between Egypt and education, the opportunity to sort of engage in both and with both at AUC is what drew me back here.
Are there any final comments you'd like to make with regards to your approach here at AUC? You must have gained a lot from the diplomatic experience and your background in education that sort of influences what you hope to accomplish here, especially in light of what you mentioned, our upcoming second century, the centennial.
Sure.
Are there any final comments you want to say to the entire community, not just the students? Just anything you'd like to add?
Well, just to reaffirm how really thrilled and delighted I am to be back in Egypt. My realistic optimism about Egypt. I'm not blind to the problems, but I am optimistic because I've met so many Egyptians like you, the students that we've got here. I'm delighted to find the ambitions are high. The ambitions after the revolution remain high. The talent, the energy is all there. All that this country needs, all that the world needs, is here. To be a part of bringing that together is a huge privilege and very meaningful to me. So it's not what I'm going to accomplish. I probably will accomplish nothing. But we, students, faculty, parents, administration, staff, we have no limits together to what we can accomplish. And I share the vision I've already found here of taking this very good university to great. That's what I think our goal should be, to go from good to great in the second century before us.
Okay, thank you very much for your time, President
Thank you.
Ricciardone.